You're listening to the Wired for Impact podcast.
All right, I am here with Versan and Vandell Aljarrah. Thank you guys for joining me today, the brother duos of the Black Swan Capitalists. Thank you guys for taking the time today and sharing some wisdom on just this incredible economic scenario that we find ourselves in right now. So first and foremost, thanks for taking the time today.
Thank you, Peter. I'm really happy to be here. Yeah.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Excellent. So I've been following you guys for a little bit now on YouTube. You've got a great YouTube channel, the Black Swan Capitalist, and you're one of the few people that I believe is articulating and putting this whole economic crisis and all the volatility that's going on right now in a more macro level perspective, while also drilling down and explaining what's going on the more micro level. Very few people that I have come across are connecting dots that at least I'm thinking are there, and I don't have the financial expertise to do it, but you guys do an excellent job of that. Before we get into some of the questions that I have for you, can you explain or just share your background, your economic background, so that we have a basis for understanding where your education is from?
Yes, sure. I'll go first. So real quick, we were born in Saudi Arabia, lived there for many years, relocated to the UAE, lived there for many years, and then came to the US and moved around the United States. Growing up, we come from a family of diplomats and people that are in oil and gas and in the financial and banking sector. So a lot of that rubbed off on us as, young children, teenagers, and then young men. We ended up going in a different direction, though, throughout the college and university phase of our life. So personally, I went to Full Sail University, studied business and music production. So there was no finance involved, except little basics here and there. However, though, I quit halfway through, realized that this is not going to teach me anything practical. It's all theoretical unless I wanted to become a music producer, which I did not. I changed my mind during that point and really grown attached to entrepreneurship, financial freedom, and sovereignty, and making money. So towards that phase, as that was ending, I came back to the US, to Texas, and I went to apply for a job at International Bank of Commerce. I was actually not supposed to get the opportunity as a banker there, but through some, networking and engaging with the employer, I was happy to get the opportunity, and I did. So I was doing banking there for about 2.5 years. I don't have the dates exact, but it was almost 3 years. So I was doing banking over there as a personal banker. That was the first stage in my life of actual work and career in finance and banking. So I learned a lot over there. And then after that, I decided I wanted to get paid more. I wanted to make more money. Yes. So I got another opportunity. I applied actually at Bank of America. So I went to go work for Merrill Lynch. I was there for almost, about 2 years as well. And towards the end of the 2-year phase at Bank of America, I learned a lot before I left. And things they don't teach in school. Things you can't learn unless you're really working the day-to-day job, dealing with the financial affairs of, individuals on all levels. Now, as I left Bank of America, I got an opportunity to work as an executive assistant to the CEO for a oil and gas company called Energy Vest Inc. So I was a right-hand man for the CEO. I worked very closely with him, learned a ton throughout that process. And I was dealing more on the financial affairs, account payables. I was doing everything from, issuing stock certificates to investors and accompanying him with meetings all across the US, and just learned a lot because I was a right-hand man for him.
You've fit a lot of experience in your young life so far. Versan, did you sort of mirror that as well, or did you have a unique path?
We mirrored it, but the thing is, I went in a different direction as well. we went to Full Sail together. I play piano and drums, and I thought it was something. It's really a passion. It's not a career.
Mhm.
And then I went to mechanical engineering. So my background is engineering. I scaled up my businesses here in Houston, Texas, and before focusing full time on Black Swan Capitalist. But around 2018, once we started to really understand what's going on here in this financial system, I was naturally just drawn to it, and I followed in my brother's footsteps.
Mhm. You guys have mentioned that you believe that we are facing an intentional engineered economic collapse. Can you explain why you think that is?
Well, yeah. First of all, when we look at the current global financial shift that's happening, it's happening, which is interesting. It's happening in a multitude of ways. And many of these ways are being conducted, of course, behind closed doors. The public is certainly being sold a lie right now to keep them distracted, while other manipulative tactics are being used to shift this global financial system into a new blockchain technology solution, totalitarianism monetary system.
Mhm.
So I'm like really looking at the macro scale of everything. But when we really look at what they're doing, right, the central bankers, they're really coordinating and racing the bottom of the currency, devaluing it. And I mean, this is all evidently clear, and it really came out to light around the pandemic. I think many people who were sitting at home watching Netflix did not see this. But there were a lot of us out there, I'm sure, including yourself, that was paying attention, and we saw what was going on, and we really started to research this stuff, and we look at the moves that they're making, and you could tell this is an inside job. It's certainly engineered.
Why do you say that? Like, what is it that they're doing that you look at, you go, this is clearly an inside job?
Sure. So first of all, the lockdowns, not only did they tread on your freedom, but when they started to lock down the economy, what happened was they kept the big businesses open, monopoly, and they made sure everyone else smaller businesses were shut down. What this did was really, it slowed down the gears of the economy. So they were grinding, and now they're stopping. And everything we're experiencing now is really just a taste of what's about to come. And it's really just stopping. The global financial system is coming to a pause. Until a new system is coming. But when they locked down the economy, many people suffered. They printed a bunch of money. And when they print money, there's more surplus of money in the system, a supply of money in the system. So that means the currency is worth less. So this is, it's obvious, this is not an accident. The actions that they've taken to get us where we are today, it was all done through the pandemic. And then if we look also at the far left and the new ideologies that they're pushing here, it's really, it's so obvious, what's going on here. Vandell, would you like to add on?
Yeah, go ahead, Vandell.
Yeah, sure. There are many reasons why it's an obviously engineered task going on. Besides what my brother just said, the first reason is the central banks, the Federal Reserve, and the globalists, they have the brightest minds in the world working for them, from the greatest universities in the world. And if they were trying to make things better, they have the capabilities to. But so far, what we've seen is they've made life extremely difficult for the standard of living for most people. They made life difficult for business owners. And so far, they've just been making things much more worse and harder to deal with for the average person. So that's clearly a sign of intention right there. Now, the reason they're doing this is not to get off track, but it's because we're at the end stages of the currency as the dollar as a reserve currency. So currencies have life cycles. And to really understand this, you got to go back in history. But people think, oh, the dollar would never lose its reserve status. It will never be deemed or America would never be deemed a third world country. But what's happening is there's a currency reset taking place right now. And the reason is because we're at the end stages of the dollar's life cycle. It's gone on for too long, and it happens every 80 to 100 years. And there's countless examples of this. For example, so the Bretton Woods Agreement, which was in 1944, they established the US dollar as a global reserve currency, and it was fixed to gold. Now, currency reform took place in Germany. So like in 1948, it replaced the old Reichsmark with the Dutch mark, ratio, 10 to 1. And then in modern day, a currency reform took place in Zimbabwe in 2009. And basically it's happened in Argentina as well. So the dollar is the one that has gone on for the longest. And right now, what they're doing is they're preparing the infrastructure, or we believe they already have it prepared and in place for a new currency as a reserve currency. Now, that could be one or it could be multiple currencies. But the point is, we're getting to the end stages of the currency and we're going through a currency reset. So everything is deliberately being engineered right now to move us in that direction. That's what I was trying to say from the beginning. And there are too many indicators, too many signs, because everything they're doing, like I said previously, is making life more difficult for businesses, small businesses, big businesses, and just for the average person trying to live day to day and buy food, groceries, gas, and daily necessities. So it's clear that they're doing this on purpose. And as I said, they do have the brightest minds at their tables. So if they wanted to fix things, they easily could. But what they're doing is putting on a show for the public on mainstream news, saying, we got this, we're doing this, we got it covered. But in reality, no, you don't need a news media or a channel to tell you whether you're in a recession or not, or in a depression. All you got to do is look at your bank account and your lifestyle. And so far, it's just getting worse for most people. It's not getting any better.
Well, I just wanted to add something. Basically, some people are, asking, okay, Federal Reserve, they're talking about interest rates and 25 basis points. And we kind of covered that very briefly earlier. But basically, they're not doing anything to control inflation. The truth is they're lying to people and they're creating the narrative to control inflation. And that's all we've been hearing for the last year, even from the top economists on mainstream news. They're just talking about the same fluff over and over because this is a narrative to control inflation and talk about interest rates. So people think they're doing something about the situation when they're not. It's really just smoke and mirrors game.
What's so interesting about what you said a minute ago was it's so obvious. And what I find very interesting about that is I've talked to many, many very educated, very experienced financial experts, and they do not see this. And I think it's obvious for those who look for it, who have the initial belief that is it possible that there is nefarious stuff going on here and not just, organic or even just corrupt, like your run of the mill corruption. Like this seems to go beyond that. And I don't think people are going to see it unless it's a psychological thing where they have to first look for it and therefore have, it's like trying on a new suit, like you have to put it on in order to see how it fits. You have to look at the world through this possible lens of, is this an engineered economic collapse? And until you do, you won't see it. Do you guys find that to be consistent with your experience too, or no?
Yes, actually. So just as you said, a lot of people are very closed off to that idea. And the reason is because they don't think it's possible. First of all, even the experts, but the reality is the information is out there. It really takes a skill to see beyond the curtains and connect the dots. Okay. You have to have the information in order to put the pieces of the puzzle together. If you don't have the information, which is already out there, if you don't have that, then how are you going to put the puzzle together and see a clear picture? So really
especially if you disbelieve that people would actually do that, then you're not even going to realize that there's a puzzle there to be put together. Sure. So what do you think? I think something that gets some people hung up is these people, central bankers, are obviously money's not an issue in their life. What are they fueled by? What motivates them? Because they already have everything. So why would they do this?
Well, you really have to look at history to really answer that question. I don't want to. Okay, so if you have to really look at the big families that are really running the show here. If you start to really follow the money, you really tie it back. And they always say, follow the money. This is what the experts say too. When you follow the money, you really tie it back to, the big families out there. I'm talking about the Astor family, the Rothschilds, Rockefellers. Also, for instance, BlackRock. People know them to be the largest asset manager on the planet, right? They hold all the real estate globally and whatnot. I found out only a few days ago that BlackRock and Blackstone was completely owned by the Rockefeller Foundation. So I followed that. And guess what I found out? 56% of the Rockefeller Foundation is owned by the Rothschilds family. And that's public.
Whoa.
So yeah, I triggered, and that's when I put the video out about the Rothschilds the other day on my YouTube channel. I didn't really talk much about it, but it's a pain in the ass to make those videos. It really is. It's not easy. But I found it, and I was going to actually address it in the next video very briefly. But yes, it's public information. And also, if you look at the big families out there that own the assets, and not just the assets, they're running the show from behind closed doors, and people don't see it the way we see it. It's because I don't think they have all the data. You really have to go down some rabbit holes to really find this stuff. You really have to, and like my brother said, it takes a certain kind of skill set to see the bigger macro picture behind everything that's playing out. Whether people believe that this is a new system to come in to bring salvation and financial freedom to all of us, okay, that's great. We're hopeful too. We're very positive about how we see this unfolding. But at the same time, we look at the facts and we see that there's more of a centralized system that's trying to put this new system into place, so that way they can issue central bank digital currencies where they can now control your behavior, your beliefs even. And people are like, how do you do that? Well, if it's programmable money, that scares the shit out of me. Programmable money. Hey, I don't want to support Biden for his 2024 election. I want to go support, Kennedy. Guess what? If I put the money into Kennedy's election, they can cut me out of paying my bills, and that's it. I'm excluded from the system. And people don't believe this. But the Bank of International Settlements, they clearly said this publicly. And guess what? I went and found the video on YouTube, 20,000 views. There's about 7 billion people on the planet. So no one's paying attention. No one cares. No one's paying attention. And people are too busy trying to earn a currency that is devaluing. I mean, it's losing value faster than you can earn it. So there's no way in hell people are going to have time to go and research all this stuff. So it's a very small percentage of people who see what's really playing out here. And you have to follow the money.
So let's walk through the economic collapse as you see it right now. In watching some of your most recent videos, you're talking about the central banks pumping liquidity into the markets to basically prop up an insolvent economic system.
Yes.
And in your perspective, that is essentially buying them time, I think you said, at these banks. So why don't you speak specifically to the bank collapses that have been happening recently? Is that part of the engineered economic collapse in your mind? And if so, how?
Okay. So all these banks failing are because they don't have enough liquidity in their system. So this is orchestrated, what's happening right now. And the big plan here is for the larger banks to consolidate and pick up the small banks or put them out of business. It's a power shift right now. You're seeing the power from the really good quality banks, which are the small ones, go to the big banks, and the small banks are being put out of business. And there's different reasons for this and different ways they're doing it. Not enough liquidity, high inflation, high cost, interest rates are too high. Right. So even for banks to make money on lending out money and fractional reserve lending, they have to have such a high interest rate just for them to make a profit because inflation is too high. You see what I mean? So just little things like that. And they can't sustain themselves in a really crappy economical environment right now with extremely high inflation. So it all goes back to the money supply and the central banks. They're the ones who have control. And what they really are is a banking cartel. That's the truth. Whether people want to believe it or not, they are a cartel, they're families, they are a group, many groups, and they work collectively to engineer a lot of these outcomes that we're seeing. And they do it in such a way that seems that it's not their doing. You see what I mean?
Yeah, there's always a veil of plausible deniability that.
Sure. Yeah.
If anybody studied, like the mob or organized crime, they could never get to the bosses because there was always these layers of
too many barriers.
Too many barriers. The way that I see it is the consolidation to me is they have the power and the resources to absorb and to basically survive some of these economic shifts.
Yes.
Whereas the small mom and pops, and not even the small mom and pops, but legitimate, decent sized companies that the average person would say, oh, it's a, $250 million company. Well, that's a small company compared to these other ones. if they don't have the liquidity to survive the turmoil, they then collapse into these larger conglomerates. And so if I'm an evil, central banker, I want everything to collapse into me. And if you think of during the pandemic, how much Amazon took off, and if you could control one person or one company and knock off everybody else to where they all went out of business, and then everybody started using Amazon, and you had Amazon in your back pocket. Now you're able to control so much more because of that. So I'm seeing that consolidation happening in banking, in retail, in food manufacturing, in everything.
But you're seeing it though. And
yes,
another thing, two solutions right now to fixing some of the problems, and you never hear anybody on mainstream news talk about this. I've never heard this in the last 2 years. Why didn't anyone ever, even Peter Schiff being on mainstream news, say, hey, if the Fed really wants to control inflation, why don't we contract the money supply? If you contract the money supply in the system and not keep injecting, inflation will come down. It really will.
That's why I
but
said
they're
it's
not doing
engineered.
that. Yeah. And another thing, the interest rates, when they raise interest rates, it means that more financial resources become restrained. So institutions, like my brother said, cannot survive in such a volatile economic environment. It's not going to work out. So this is a slow, gradual, engineered crisis, one after the other. And obviously no one's paying attention. But another thing we need to talk about, sorry, Vandell, it's when we look at the current state of the banking industry, we have to understand that these are banks that have massive leverage, massive debt, and more loans out there with very high risk of defaults because of the COVID lockdowns. So as a result, basically, we're now going to start seeing massive layoffs, and these layoffs haven't even started yet. I've been warning people about this. It's coming. As they introduce artificial intelligence into the workforce. Again, macro perspective.
Yeah,
I could go on and on about this.
The interest rates are another thing that's killing the little guy in combination with inflation. For example, they raise interest rates. Okay, well, now you're seeing that the average car note, people are paying between $500 and $1,000. That's ridiculous. That used to be how much a rent for a one-bedroom would cost. Now that's your car, not including your groceries, your gas, your family, your daily necessities, and your rent. So you see what I mean? That's killing people. Home prices, home demand goes down too because of higher interest rates, got higher mortgage now. You see what I mean? People are waiting on the sidelines. So we predict it's going to have this slingshot effect, and it's coming soon. And one of them, which is going to be a negative, and we live life. Look, I'm telling you, Peter, we're happy. We're doing things, we're sending out positive messages, but we're aware of what's going on. And that's why we try to share it. But another thing coming is a serious depression. That's the truth. I mean, if you look at the technical analysis on the charts for the S&P 500 in the 1900s, comparing it today, the charts look identical. It's ridiculous. And it looks like we're about to go way, way lower for the S&P 500, the market, home prices too. And the reason is because inflation and interest rates, and people can't withstand that.
We're going to get to your guys' perspectives on what solutions and what things people can do to help survive and possibly even thrive for that. But first, Versan, you had brought up before about the yield. What was it? The
yield curve inversion.
Yield curve inversion. Right. Can you explain what that is and how that is an indicator of problems?
Absolutely. When the yield curve inverts, it basically means that there are short-term prospects for the economy and no longer long-term prospects. That's it. And people want to delve into that. That's totally fine. But it's an indicator basically letting you know that we're talking about, again, big financial institutions. Now they want to invest in short-term bonds, not long-term. Why? With long-term bonds, you're going to get a lower interest rate. And at the same time, that means you have more prospects for the global economy in the United States and et cetera, right? Because everything's still tied to the dollar. So when the yield curve inverts, that basically means short-term prospects, less investment, higher risk, higher interest rates, higher inflation. It means basically this country is going downwards, basically, in other terms. And we have a statement that just came out yesterday from the IMF, Georgieva Kristalina. She made a statement yesterday saying that the whole world is de-dollarizing, but there is no alternative currency. That was her statement.
What's funny about that, she's the head of the International Monetary Fund, which is the IMF, and she said the whole world is de-dollarizing and they don't have an alternative. But the funny thing about that is Ripple, the company, XRP, their digital asset, and the company Ripple is actually on the advisory board of the IMF. So is that a coincidence?
It's those kind of things that I believe help for the people that are paying attention. It helps to see that they're clearly not communicating the whole truth. There was that other leaked video that came out that basically said, let's keep the people calm. If they knew what was really going on, people
from the
panic.
FDIC, Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. Yeah.
It's those kind of things that people like yourself are looking into that the average person is just not seeing. The average person is also not seeing the connection between not just the banking crisis and the, people hear of central bankers and they think, oh, they're just in the banking industry, and they don't necessarily understand that we're not talking about the financial markets. We're talking about all markets, the whole pie.
Yeah, definitely.
So can you draw any connection between the central banking and also the conflict in Ukraine and Russia?
Real quick, I want people to understand who are going to listen to this, that we have to note that the central banks, they're not just trying to survive the current economic climate that they engineered. They're actively working to consolidate power because they know that the dollar is losing its status. The big question then comes is like, will America take us to war to protect the reserve status of the dollar, whether this is engineered on a global scale or not? But basically, they're trying to be the only game in town where they can control this financial system completely. And it's just centralized control at its worst. I just wanted to put that out there for anyone who's listening.
So first of all, the whole war with Ukraine, to be honest, they're only showing us the surface, and whatever they're telling us on mainstream news is it's something that I deny. I don't really believe it 100% because they always lie to us, and that's to give us a narrative and cover up. Now, interestingly, what's going on is, Ukraine they were using it to launder money. And this ties actually straight to FTX and the banks that they were associated with. So it's not something that I've delved too much into, to be extremely frank with you, so I don't think I'd be the best candidate to answer those questions. But I do believe there is a connection, and they're using Ukraine as a cover-up, and they're laundering money through there. They're also using FTX to do that at the time. And they have other individuals that are connected to the Biden administration that are directly connected to Sam Bankman-Fried with their connection in Ukraine. So we follow the money, and you see there was this circulation of funds going from the US to Ukraine, back and forth.
FTX is essentially the front company to.
It was a hub. It was a hub to move money back and forth between here and there, undisclosed and quietly. But it goes much deeper than that. Very briefly, rabbit hole topic. I'm going to kind of leave some breadcrumbs. But basically, when you get to the bottom of this FTX and Ukraine proxy war, you also discovered that they were using FTX to, I'm not even kidding, to move money again quietly, but it had a lot to do with the human trafficking. So I'm not going to touch up any more on that. People can go do their own research, but when you really get to the bottom of it, you discover that that was also a centerpiece in this whole thing. And that's what they're afraid about with the Biden laptop as well, and a few other things. But again, we won't get into that. What I want to go back to is the connection between the central banks and the Ukraine. First of all, the central banks keep saying publicly that we're not coordinating with other central banks. Why are they telling you this? Well, when you actually look at the research, why are they all raising interest rates at the same time? Why are they all doing this at the same time? It's because they are coordinating. That is 100% bullshit. That's one. Two, another thing, America, people don't understand this. For the United States financial system to look solvent, right? That things haven't fallen down yet. They have to keep inflating. They have to keep looking for reasons to print more money and inject more money into the system.
Into the market.
And how are they doing this? Proxy wars, not just proxy wars, the woke propaganda. This is taking a lot of money and putting it into the system for very stupid things. They actually took millions of dollars to fund research to see what cocaine can do to puppies. I'm not even kidding. Disgusting, cruel, and guess what? They're still inflating. They're always looking for a reason to inflate, because if they stop inflating, that means stop printing money, stop injecting money. Guess what happens? The whole system falls like dominoes. I'm not kidding. Another thing, we have to understand that the demand for the dollar, with interest rates being high, everything is in dollars still. So they're weaponizing the dollar at the same time while they keep injecting, inflating. So they're weaponizing the dollar to where people can't even make moves outside of the dollar just yet. Until we have regulation for this new system. This is why regulation in crypto and digital assets is so important. And it explains maybe even why the lawsuit with Ripple is going on, even though we see the adoption of this technology behind every major financial institution worldwide. And I have documents and upon documents here. This file, I'm old school. I like to print things because they can disappear. Anything digital can disappear. I'm old school. Print things, I highlight them, and I've been holding these documents for a very long time now, and some of them even date back to 2017. And these are partnerships with Ripple. I mean, it is insane what's happening here. There's so many pieces moving at the same time to one common goal, a new financial system. And that's really the crux of this.
A shift of power.
So let's talk about Ripple. For those that are not clear, who have not been paying attention to this part of it, well, first of all, we're talking about a blockchain digital asset called XRP that Ripple, the company, has largely distributed. They essentially are the face for XRP, which is a decentralized coin, correct?
It is, yes. A lot of people think it's not, but it actually is.
So the reason why this is why XRP has gotten a lot of attention and controversy is, if we look at it through the lens of these central bankers, this represents a competitive product, correct? If your product is the dollar and the dollar is the reserve currency, but you're seeing stress signals that this is at the end of its life cycle, that I think is why we're seeing a lot of this shifting going on, a lot of this maneuvering, and a lot of this frankly foul play that's going on and media manipulation. We gotta show how unstable the crypto market is, because the dollar people don't want people to go into crypto, or at least not yet, until they have their solutions set up. So let's talk a little bit about XRP. You guys have educated me a lot on XRP and why it might be a very solid solution for this new economy, this new global reset that's about to occur. Can you explain your interest in XRP, why you feel it might be a solution to the economic problems we're facing?
Yeah, so first of all, XRP was created, it's a liquidity token. Okay.
Explain what that means to the average person.
So it has the ability to settle within seconds. So it can provide liquidity. It's a financial instrument that can provide liquidity because it can settle and send and move around value in seconds. Now, the thing about it, why it's so unique, is besides the fact that it can move such a large amount of value within seconds, it's also scalable, which means it can scale more transactions as the market matures, as it takes on more demand. The other thing is it's actually in alignment with the globalist agenda, which is green, clean energy, environmentally friendly. So it has those three, it has those three characteristics that are perfectly suited for the central banks to move value. And everything is in alignment with what they want. And then that makes you wonder, oh, well, no wonder they have all these partnerships behind the scenes, why they're rubbing shoulders with elite central bankers and different financial institutions. It's because they created a technology that has the capabilities to meet exactly the needs of the central banks and financial institutions. And that also makes you see, it's always about asking the questions. A good question is, okay, well, if they're so good, they're so capable and they're probably going to succeed, and I'm talking about Ripple and XRP, then why aren't they talked about more on mainstream news? Why aren't they really promoted in the crypto space? They're really not. The only promotion they're getting right now is from the Ripple lawsuit case, and that's actually to really push people away from it. because the average person, when they see a company getting sued or a digital asset being gone after, they try to stay away. They follow the news. They're like, oh, that's probably not good. I got to stay away from it. But the question is, that's why they don't promote it. They don't want everybody to be involved in XRP and get their hands on it. And if you actually look at how many wallets there are for it, there's such a small amount of people in the world that actually own XRP, to be very frank with you, you know? Mm-hmm. And so the thing is with XRP, it has these capabilities that are perfect for the banks and for moving value. And that makes sense for the partnerships and the discrete agreements that they're having behind the scenes.
Versan, I know you have something to add to that.
Yes, I'm sorry. I've been drinking too much coffee as usual. Okay. And I apologize to everybody in the audience too. So what Vandell said is absolutely correct. He's right about everything, but I would like to add that we have to look again at the liquidity issue. As global liquidity continues to drop, the institutions are going to have to rethink sustainable monetary supply, right? And they're going to have to look for solutions to provide liquidity across different currencies as well. So every day it becomes more evident that this technology, XRP, plays such a crucial role in building and bridging the traditional financial system with this new system. There's a bridge there. And again, those, I got to say this too, is those who sacrifice their time, energy, and resources to be in the right place at the right time are certainly positioned for success, incredible success. And also with all the banks going down, blockchain-based solutions, again, they're going to have to go live very soon. So we're getting very close. You know,
can you clarify something for me or just shed some light on this? On the one hand, XRP seems to be a tool for freedom, a monetary, what's the word I'm looking for? A tool essentially that will solve the problems, it'll solve the liquidity problem. So it presents itself as a solution to some of the big problems that we're seeing right now. And yet at the same time, we're also seeing a lot of connection between Ripple, XRP, and some of the globalists that we're saying is also maybe possibly engineering this economic crisis. How do you reconcile supporting XRP while at the same time it seems to be there's a lot of globalist connection to it?
Yeah, it's simple. So first of all, people need to understand this. If you understand monetary history and the way the central banks operate, even the Vatican, all the way dating back from centuries ago till today, you'll understand this, that the bankers and the ones who control the money control the world and they control the people. And they will never give you more control as time goes on. The only thing they're going to do is take more control for themselves and take it away from the people. And right now you're seeing the stages of that we're going through, and blockchain plays a big role in this. So the thing is, with XRP, we don't believe that the central banks are going to give you an option or anybody to have your own money that you can use to pay for anything without them being able to monitor it. That's extremely naive. And that's why we don't believe Bitcoin will succeed in the greater future, in the long run. They're going to find a way they will shut it down. They're not going to have a central bank digital currency and then allow Bitcoin, which is a direct competitor with it. So you can use Bitcoin instead of use their CBDC, which gives them more control. That's stupid. Doesn't make sense. And it's not going to happen.
Why don't they just buy up all the Bitcoin? I mean, is there not?
Actually, this is interesting. Wait, real quick. I'm sorry, guys. This is interesting. In my research the other day, when I was finding out about the Rothschilds owning 56% of the Rockefeller Foundation, not kidding. I also found an article that dates back to 2020 that the Rothschilds family owned even more Bitcoin, right, than MicroStrategy, Michael Saylor. So if they own most of the Bitcoin and they were there in the early days of its inception, and remember, these are some very powerful families that run central banks. And then we look at David Schwartz being at the National Security Agency. Bitcoin, I believe, is a stress test to see how this is going to go. And how come it came out after the 2008 financial crisis? Right after that, at the same time, we look at it and there's no owner. No one knows who it is. It's a mystery, man. Sounds like the biggest bullshit story to me ever. It's like the perfect rug
because
pull.
It is.
And yeah, and guess what? You hear Kevin O'Leary, and these are top investors, right? Supposedly, and they say, oh yeah, I'll go buy Bitcoin. I've never heard one intelligent investor ever buy something where they don't know the fundamentals, the owner, the company's background. I mean, it's really a greater fool theory, basically, like fool's gold, basically. It really is. And I believe that strongly.
And back to what Peter was asking about XRP.
Sorry.
Okay, well, the thing is, the central banks will never let you have a currency that competes directly with them and gives you more freedom. That won't happen. Okay, maybe now, but not in the future. Now, the thing is with XRP, if you buy XRP and the price inevitably, when it does go up, brings you wealth, makes you money, and you can convert that into whatever else you want. It could be dollars, gold, assets, real estate. You're a winner, okay? And it doesn't mean you're supporting a cabal and elites and central bankers. If it goes up and you make money on it, that means you're supporting yourself and you took care of yourself. You're getting in on an opportunity that has a very small window so that you can make money and have more freedom for yourself and your family. But ultimately, it's not going to be used to make your life easier. XRP is not created for that use case. It's not for the average person. And if people think that, that's extremely stupid and naive. But you can make money on it. And the technical analysis and the fundamental analysis, which we combine both, are indicating that XRP is going to be an extremely, very high price. And I'm not going to put numbers out here because I don't want to look crazy. But that's not me speaking. That's the numbers, the data, the figures, and the charts speaking. On top of that, you got all the partnerships and the fundamentals in the background that are perfectly laid out, ready to go. So if you own XRP, and notably, I have to note there's also a limited supply, and the demand will be extremely high because institutions are going to have to use it for liquidity purposes and to move value, which means there will be even less supply available because institutions, when they do buy it and use it, they're not going to be selling it. They're going to be holding it to use it. So just more and more institutions are going to grasp onto more XRP, and the supply is going to become even more limited over time. So not to mention, it's also a deflationary asset. So if you look at all the characteristics and qualities of it, besides its capabilities, XRP could go to extremely high digits, and it will. And the thing is, XRP's price will never go down. It will only go up. When the slingshot takes place, it will only go up. And I'm talking about utility kicks in and when the market matures. All you have to do is look at the information and connect the dots. That's it.
A few things I'd like to add on as usual. Okay, so first of all, people need to understand that, based on everything we discussed as far as liquidity as well, it really takes us back to the fact that XRP is perfectly positioned to serve as a world reserve medium of exchange currency. It really is a value. There's value there that can be moved around. So when you really get to the bottom of this, you discover that, XRP is really going to be around the center point of this new financial system, and everything else you hear about is going to be built around it. And that's what the interoperability is all about. And we also have a tweet from Arthur Brito. Arthur Brito was one of the creators of the Ripple protocol. And he said that XRP must be scalable to accommodate 7.5 billion people. I find that very interesting alone when he says something like that. And we also have to understand that as the destruction of currency happens because of the debt and inflation rises, there's loss of confidence in the dollar. So eventually all this value, is going to move to these digital assets.
From one place to the other.
There's going to be a very high demand for technologies such as XRP and XLM. I think they need each other to work. It takes two to tango. I see XRP being really the center point, and XLM being more of for everyday transactions, currency like that. Because when you actually look at it inside, you could see that it falls right into, if we're doing a new system in the monetary policy, it falls right in bed in those places. It perfectly meets. And even Vandell, you want to talk about the World Bank? Remember that document?
Yeah. So there's a document that was published in September 2021. And this document, I actually read the whole thing. There are many pages, but on page 31, there's a section labeled Stablecoins. And under that section, it only lists two stablecoins that I was referring to. The first one was XRP, and the second one was XLM. Now, this document was published in 2021 by the World Bank. The World Bank is based in Washington. Okay?
Rothschild Bank.
Yes, it's a Rothschild bank. And the World Bank is actually owned, its parent organization is the United Nations. So you see, you make the connections here, and they publish this document. Of course, most people in the world, of course, will never come across that document. They haven't read it, but it is public, and the information is there. All you got to do is read, and they listed it as stable coins. They spoke precisely in great detail for the functions and the use cases for XRP in comparison to XLM created by Stellar. Yes.
Do you guys have that on your website? I'd love to get a link to that.
Peter,
I'll send it to you.
I just emailed it to you right now.
Perfect.
Yeah.
We'll include that in the show
I just
notes.
emailed it to you.
Fantastic.
It's loading right now, so you should receive it any second.
What do you guys see? Walk us through what you see happening in the next 1, 3, 5, 10 years. Like, give us what your feel is. Obviously, it's not we're not going to hold you to the exact prediction, but what do you see as the possible scenario of this whole thing collapsing and then restarting?
Can I touch up on that, Vandell, very briefly? The way I see it, again, looking at all the indicators, looking at the facts, looking at the data, and even charts, you see that we're really going into a place in the next, I would say, 2 to 3 years where financial resources are severely constrained, even with central bank digital currencies. Also, narratives and propaganda are going to be pushed like you wouldn't believe if, they have their way. I also see food becoming a big issue. I've talked about this in some of my videos about the food crisis, and I haven't spoken about it since, but it's getting worse. It's not getting better. The World Economic Forum is putting a mandatory diet on a global scale because of the engineered food crisis with all the farms going into fire. And this diet, I discovered, has really a lot of insects and some protein in it. And guess what? The diet, I have the document here somewhere. It actually is supposed to reduce the population because it's going to make you weak. They want to take meat away. And we're already starting to see a lot of this unfold. So I see the very near future, if things don't get resolved, and if people don't have a collective consciousness about what's happening, we could be in very bad territory in the next few years. I see it getting very ugly unless people wake the hell up and we have the numbers to stop this and to demand accountability and transparency.
Yeah. So what I'm seeing is what I believe is going to take place is we're moving towards a more totalitarian system on the financial side and within the economy for businesses. I think it's going to get a little tougher for the average person and for businesses, small businesses, because of inflation and high interest rates. And it's going to force people to rely on the government more. And that's the ultimate goal. They make life so hard to where you have to rely on them. So they create a problem, people are having a reaction, and then they're going to have a solution to the problem they created in the first place so that you rely on them more. And they already started to initiate this in 2020 during the pandemic. They told people, stay at home and we'll send you money. There you go. That was the first stage of conditioning people to sit on their ass and receive money and rely on the government to send them money so that they could buy their food, pay their rent. So they already got people conditioned to that. And I think that's going to happen again. I'm not sure what the next Black Swan event will be, but I think there's going to be some situation that's going to force people to rely on the government, and they'll step in with some solution to a problem they manufactured. And I think, yes, times are going to get tough. However, though, I do believe that there's ways to successfully and cleverly position yourself to have a little more freedom and be in a better financial state, so you have a little more peace of mind for you and your family. And it's not all doom and gloom, although I think that's their agenda. There's still a positive side, and the grass is greener on the other side. But in order to get there, you have to be aware of what's going on so you can make the right decisions while you have the time to do it.
Yeah, I think the tentacles of the banking cartel, people need to understand that they go far beyond just the banking industry, so that when the pandemic does come and we're all staying at home, sure, the government, so there's political tentacles so that the politicians send you money, but then, well, where do you go to shop and get your food? Oh, it's Amazon. So there might be a connection to these big corporations, and like every possible route that you think you have available to you, there's going to be, in a lot of cases, there's a proven connection between these families, these large banking cartels. So I think people need to understand that, because
yes,
they're not zoomed out enough to see it. So one thing I wanted to ask you though is, you're talking about the doom and gloom, and sure, there's a lot of reason to be concerned right now, but I do believe that we are in a spiritual war, and that a lot of it has to do with hearts and minds. And that one thing that we need to do is to paint a brighter picture, is to have a sense of vision. Okay, great, the storm is coming, but light up the path for me to go to greener pastures, so to speak. And Vandell, you were just saying that there are lots of things that somebody can do to actually prepare themselves and maybe possibly even thrive, have more freedom in the economic turbulence. What are some of those things? What are some direct actions people can take to improve their financial picture?
Well, there's two directions and two places to look at. The first thing is wealth protection and protecting yourself. That's the first thing. So just being protected. The second one is creating wealth and working on your finances. So for wealth protection, there are many things people can do. It depends on your situation, of course, but owning assets, not having too many dollars, because we know what's happening with inflation right now. Your dollars are losing value. Owning, some physical assets, whether it's silver, gold, digital assets, such as certain cryptocurrencies. It could be collectibles. Yeah, just tangible assets, real estate, if you can afford that. The point is, you want to protect yourself. Try to rely on yourself more and not be so dependent on the government. So if you can, have your own food, grow your own food, your own water source. Another thing that's very important is community. This is the safety and protection aspect of it. Now, for putting yourself in an even better position and creating wealth, the thing is, you want to own assets that are going to go up in value. So right now, we own a few different ones, but one of them is cryptocurrency, specific digital assets, because we know once the market matures and the use cases really kick in and utility, they're going to go up in value. I don't guarantee anything, but it really is a guarantee. We've seen this happen with the dot-com boom. It's happened in history before, and right now we're entering into that phase again, where it's almost equivalent to the dot-com boom, where a handful of companies will succeed and most of them will go to zero. And the ones that succeed are the ones that are really disrupting industries and changing the world.
When you say that it's almost guaranteed, you're really talking about the ones that have that utility, not just any cryptocurrency.
Yes, exactly.
Just to be clear on that.
And create a business, create a side hustle. Try to become a little more self-dependent in terms of your cash flow. These are important things that people need to do, because as the recession, develop skill sets, but people need to focus on making more money. And I get into conversations about people about making money and building a business or a side hustle, enhancing your cash flow. And people say, oh, money's not everything. And I agree, money's not everything. But we live in a world today where for you to have a sense of peace and a decent standard of living, you need to focus on financial freedom and build wealth, or at least build up your finances and your cash flow in some way, shape, or form. And not just for you, for your family too. Because if you don't, you're just relying on one job, you're relying on the government or a company, and you're just a number in their books. 100%. If something happens, you're screwed. You lose your job. I mean, people think you could find a job in a few weeks. Well, wait till things get even tougher. Then how are you going to pay your bills? How are you going to put food on the table? What I'm trying to do is let people be aware of what's going on so that they can have a backup plan. Try to create some sort of side hustle or something that you can rely on for some cash flow if you need it, or to build wealth in some way, But that's really the key, how you can grow your finances and make certain investments that have a high probability of doing well.
I know a lot of people hear that message and they're already stressed. They have no time. They're already overwhelmed. They're trying to get their kids to school and they're trying to do this and they've got a job. And so when they hear that message, oh, you need to do more. I just want to,
I know
it's extremely tough, but I want to just land this for a second to just say, you guys aren't trying to add complexity and stress to people's lives. You're trying to point out that this is going to get more difficult and that if you take these actions today, it will be less difficult for you.
Exactly. That's exactly it.
And that's something that I think people psychologically have a hard time wrapping their heads around because they go, oh, it must be easy for you, or I can't do that. It's like, okay, I understand that, but it doesn't make this problem go away. And there is a way that you can lower the impact of that problem and potentially even give yourself a safe haven when that storm comes. So I just wanted to reiterate that. We talked about XRP, XLM. Are there any other crypto assets that you guys are big fans of?
Yes. Another one is Hedera Hashgraph. It's called HBAR. Has huge potential. Actually, their governing council consists of the top companies in the world and fintech companies backing them, which is on their website, but it's not being promoted. So it's quite interesting. And that would be Google, LG, and Boeing, many big companies backing them. It's really something to look into. They have a superior technology for a specific use case. This is not a competitor with XRP because it's not a liquidity token. They're not focused on banking and the financial side of things, but that's another one. XRP, XLM, HBAR. Another good one is XDC, something to look into. So we own a few digital assets, really a handful. We don't have too many. We have some speculative plays, which we're not going to mention now because we don't want to, point anybody in the wrong direction. And they
speculative.
Yes. Yes. Gold and silver is important to have because that's real money. If you don't hold it, you don't own it. And if you do own gold and silver, it will protect you because no matter what new currency we have in the world, no matter what happens in the financial system and monetary system, if you have gold and silver, one or the other, you have real money and it will be tradable and accepted in any situation because it is money. It will preserve your wealth. So, and silver is more affordable. Gold is a little on the higher side, but the truth is these assets are going to get revalued at some point. They're being suppressed at the moment and their value is only going to go up. If you look back on the historical charts, silver and gold, they only go up in price over time, especially as society loses its confidence in the reserve currency and the dollar.
Real quick.
Yep.
Go ahead.
All right, guys. So what I wanted to add is for the audience, I can understand how a lot of this, this doom and gloom talk, people get back from work, they're tired. They don't have time for this stuff. They want to just relax and see, again, this is why we say it's engineered. It's because the environment has been made to where people are so stressed, man. People they can't live anymore. How can people live like this? So what I'm trying to say is that people can no longer afford to be naive about the situation that's happening right before your eyes. They need to take action and preserve their wealth. Like my brother said, right now, I've said this many times, the place to be at is digital asset solutions, blockchain protocols, and physical assets, gold, silver, platinum, palladium. If you can have it, buy it, Again, Bank of International Settlements, they moved this from tier 3 asset class to tier 1. They didn't tell anybody about this.
Zero risk, it means.
Zero risk. Yeah, basically. So why?
It's the safest thing to own, basically.
On top of that, after they moved it, record high central banks buying gold. They're buying up what's left. I have friends that own gold stores here in Houston. They keep telling me, Versan, we're getting wiped out. They keep telling me because I check every 2-3 weeks to buy more gold, right? So it's getting serious. And what I'm trying to say is that when this currency reset happens, people need to understand if they're going to introduce a central bank digital currency, right? Your currency, your dollars are going to be worth less, a lot less. And the CBDC, let's say, is in the center. Your dollars are going to be here because of inflation, devaluation of currency. But if you're owning gold and it gets reset, it's going to be at a higher price. And the reason the gold price is what it is today, and silver and the whole precious metals market, is because they can print money. When they are not able to print money anymore, this has to stop, this global debt. It will implode on itself at some point. People don't get that. The precious metals, all the global debt in the world is going to be looking for the amount of physical gold in the world to sit under it. That's going to pump the price through the roofs, not to mention the reset of the price as well. And yeah, it's going to be an amazing asset to have when this reset happens, because you can convert it into whatever currency is legal tender, CBDC, but you're going to have a lot more money in that CBDC. Does that make sense a bit? Right. So,
yeah, 100%. We're getting a little short on time, but I just wanted to really quickly ask you, do you think that what the BRICS nations are doing with their gold-backed currency, and I believe, didn't Saudi Arabia just join them? I think they just joined them.
Yes.
Do you see that as a viable alternative to CBDCs?
Could you repeat that, Peter?
The BRICS currency, they put together the BRICS nations. Do you see that as a viable alternative to CBDCs, to a central bank CBDC?
Real quick, I want to say something that's interesting. People have to also, again, go deep into this, because when you look at the BRICS nations, we're talking about China, we're talking about Brazil, we're talking about a lot of these other countries. Again, central banks all coordinating, something weird's going on there. At the same time, we see China has been funneling money into the administration and the powers that be here in the States. Yet we're against them and their BRICS currency. I don't get it. There's something weird going on.
The connections don't make sense.
It doesn't make sense.
So I wouldn't say for sure if it's a viable alternative to a CBDC. We've had this discussion before with Mali as well. So it looks like there's two sides that are trying to get control, and one of them is trying to just maintain their control. So you have these other nations, the BRICS, and then you have the US, the Federal Reserve. That's the show. But in reality, I think they're all working together.
Very possible.
Yeah, I think they're all working together. It's all a show. It's all a bunch of bullshit. They have to create some illusion, make you think there's one side that's good, one side that's bad, one side doing this, one side doing that. Who knows? It could be true, but central bank digital currencies, that's their ultimate plan. That's what they want. They want to be able to really have more control over your money, even though they already do, because they can, you're using a debit card and a credit card. They can track you. They can call your bank, the IRS, and shut you down or close your account, prevent money going into your account. So they already have control. They have had it since you started using a Visa and a debit card, since that was introduced. But now we're going to give them even more control. It's programmable.
That raises some more questions. We don't have time for those. I would love if you guys put out a video to show what you mean by those. Those connections, because you're basically insinuating that Russia and China would be on the same so I have more questions on that, but maybe on another podcast. You guys have been awesome. For those that are interested in following you, where can they find you?
Yes, so you can find us on our website at www.blackswancapitalist.io. We offer coaching and consulting sessions on investing, wealth preservation, digital assets, and hardware wallets and cryptocurrency protection to get you in the right place. And we also have a YouTube channel called Black Swan Capitalist. So yes, you could reach us there as well.
And just for clarity's sake, is it capitalist singular or
capitalist? Yes.
Singular.
Black Swan Capitalist.
Okay, fantastic. Versan, Vandell, thank you so much. This has been an awesome conversation. I look forward to hearing from you guys more. What a informative and hopefully liberating conversation for those that have listened all the way through. Thanks again, guys.
Thank you, Peter. Great talking with you. We'll talk soon.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Wired for Impact. If you're interested in creating and expanding your impact, be sure to visit us online at impactnow.com.